Now, I will talk about strategies in this video and how to actually create them in a way that's going to work for you. But do you really think I can give you some sort of strategy that's going to work exclusively for hard passages and make you like instantly understand them or get a better understanding just by implementing it with no additional work, right? The problem isn't the strategy, right? When you have a hard passage, it's not because of the strategy that you get it incorrect. It's your ability to analyze. If your ability to analyze was stronger, you wouldn't have hard passages. Every passage would be easy to understand for you, right? If you increase that, you're going to perform better on all like sorts of passages, regardless of whatever the content is. Stay to the end. I'm going to talk about the scholarship spots that I'm giving out for SAT prep. So hi, I'm Karthik. These are strategies for hard SAT passages. All right. So as I talked about before, your problem is analysis, right? Your main goal, if you find difficulty in these hard passages, is to increase your ability to analyze, which is also going to increase your accuracy throughout the whole section, right? Even in the easier passages, there's going to be harder questions within that, which this is also going to target. So this problem is just the fundamental problem of the reading SAT. It's just how good are you at breaking down structures of text and figuring out what they truly mean or summarizing them, right? That is what the SAT tests for analysis. But if you format SAT passages, right, if you just look at the format, right, they're all highly specific. If you've ever taken like, 4 or 5 practice tests, you'll notice that despite the passages coming from many different areas, they almost specifically use certain kinds of language and tone, right? The questions have a very specific tone, order, and type that is very predictable amongst no matter what passage you take. In terms of the questions, that is going to be there, right? You're going to have this algorithm that determines what the question will look like, how it's phrased, how the answer choices are phrased, and how some of them will be similar and some of them will focus on the same types of aspects within the passage, right? You're going to notice that almost instantly. And the idea with that is because the SAT follows this sort of algorithm and follows this sort of specific order, we can improve on reading pretty logically. We can increase our ability to analyze, right? And I've broken that down into 2 main portions: having accurate practice material, right? And the right strategy of improving and reviewing, right? And the way I'm going to put this out, right? It's going to seem very simple, and it is. It's very simple, but don't confuse that for difficulty, right? It's going to be hard to do this, but actually doing it doesn't involve any brain power. It's just a matter of doing it. It's very simple to understand what to do. All right. That being said, accurate practice material, right? What are you going to use exclusively? Use SAT material passages from any of those sources that I've listed, right? Old QASs might be hard to find, but if you look on the SAT Reddit in some of the comments, you might be able to find them. I have a bunch of them in my paid community. If you're interested in that, I'm giving scholarship spots out for that. So if you're interested, apply for that. But the main idea is you need to use these accurate sources, right? There is no point using any other source, and that's because of the fundamental idea I just talked about. The questions are so algorithmic in their pattern of speech and in the passage's pattern of speech that if you use any other resource, you're not going to get that same algorithm. You're not going to get that same passage feel, that same passage type. The questions are going to be more complex. They're going to be different. And as a result, you're not going to perform as well. Okay, so how to practice, right? Use full length sections. Essentially, what I want you to do is use full length passages and sections and do them like completely, right? The idea is you do full length passages, you use full sections to practice, and you use a stopwatch instead of a timer, right? You want to actually run through all the material regardless of how long it takes, and you getting better at it is going to make you naturally faster, and then you can switch to a timer, right? And make sure you do full length sections. These are essentially important because, one, if you use a timer and not a stopwatch and you just cut yourself off, you're limiting the amount of like practice you can extract from every test, and you're artificially blocking yourself from getting better and learning, right? And full length sections are important because you need to emulate the testing environment, and full length passages are important because you need to get a feel for the whole thing, not just a specific type of question when you're trying to improve overall, right? And this leads into the next idea where you're going to be able to create your own strategies for these types of questions. And essentially what every strategy should focus on is handling specific question types, right? And let's get into that. how do we review so that we can actually create those, right? To create strategies, you need to know the specific idea, portion, material, evidence, whatever it is that you got wrong that caused you to get the question wrong, right? Because the mistake isn't picking the wrong answer. You obviously picked the wrong answer. We know that if you got it wrong. The idea is, what specifically got you to do that? What was your thinking? How did you mess it up, right? And here's the basic idea. The evidence, right, or question choice or whatever you specifically put out there that's going to make you like get the answer wrong is typically in one of these categories, right? For you, maybe you didn't read a specific portion or you forgot about a specific portion, so you missed the evidence, right? You saw the evidence but you misinterpreted it, or you read other portions and you misinterpreted it, or you read it and you got to a different conclusion than what it was trying to lead you to, or you assumed things that weren't true, that the passage just like explicitly like it won't explicitly mention, but you might have thought that to be true, right? Or you misinterpreted the question itself or the answer choice. It's typically going to be under one of those, but you want to go even more specific to what caused you to do that. What was your thinking while doing the question? What portions did you lead to, right? And because you found that, right? And if you found the correct one, then essentially you do the inverse, right? So now what you're going to do is you figured out what specific portion that you got messed up. What you're going to do is use the reverse portion, right? So if I missed evidence, I'm going to scan the paper for the evidence to try to figure out the correct thing, right? Or the correct interpretation. And now that I know the correct answer choice, doing that is going to be much easier, right? By yourself. And what you're going to do is figure out what that specific thing is. And this is where the strategy comes. How can I make sure I do that in the next SAT I take, in the next portion I take, in the next section I take? What strategy can I implement? And how did I, first of all, how did I even find that correct one? What makes it correct now? What makes it more correct than the other one? And how am I supposed to find that next time? Right? Just think about that. How am I supposed to find that next time? And you need to test that, right? You can figure out a strategy and you might think, oh, okay, this is going to work. But you need to actually retest the strategy and make sure that it works consistently, right? Because most of the time you're going to make a strategy and it's actually not going to work. It's probably like hard to get a strategy to work, but once it does, you've guaranteed yourself a high accuracy rate on that type of question. It takes a huge amount of volume to make this work, right? Don't let it slide that, yeah, I talked about the simple concept, right? It's simple. Actually, I tell you exactly what to do, but it's difficult to do it, right? The amount of times that you're going to have to take passages of the cycle and practice and take in order to get a perfect score from the cycle, it takes a huge amount of cycles. But regardless of any prep strategy you use, it's going to take a huge amount of cycles, right? As a result of it taking a huge amount of cycles, you're not even going to notice like an improvement in probably the first like 10 to 20 times that you do it. Like for 1 week, you're going to do it and you're going to see no changes, right? But if you commit to sticking to it, right? If you commit to doing it, and I have used this is something that I am recommending to you as a person who scored barely over the benchmark on my first practice SAT to getting a near perfect score on the real SAT. If you stick to it, I can promise you that result, right? If you never decide to quit and you just stick to it, I can promise you that result. And here's how you're going to be able to do that: a daily habit. Focus, commit like a certain amount of time, right? It could literally be 5 minutes, but you just do it every day and you progressively increase that amount that you do every day, right? What it's going to do, it's going to reduce the amount of effort that it takes to actually get started, right? Because if you create a daily habit, it almost becomes like second nature to just do it. So start small if you need to, but do it. Actually commit to doing this every single day. And I promise, like within 2 months, you would have radically changed the way you think about the reading SAT and your score, right? Okay, now talking about the SAT community scholarships. So I have an SAT community, you might have heard about it, where I have all sorts of things inside of there where you can get one-to-one like prep with me inside that community. I can answer any questions you might potentially have. So let's say you're practicing on your own, you have a question, you just put it in a community post and I'll answer it as soon as possible, right? So like 24/7 access to me whenever I'm free. And then we have Q&A sections where you can ask me any questions. We have like live lectures and Q&A calls that are all recorded, so you can watch them later if you didn't make it to any of them. And the time zones are all adjusted so that like no matter where you are, you're going to be able to attend one, right? And the opportunity here is that you get to work for me, like not work for me, work with me for free, right? Until your final SAT. So until the last SAT that you take, you get to stay in this community for free, right? I'm giving out 10 total spots. And keep in mind, I actually have more than 10 applications already, right? So despite it being actually difficult, like if you make a really good application and I notice it and I think, wow, you're going to be able to do well in this community, that's the type of person that I'm looking for. So click the link in the description to apply. There's only 6 days left. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you learned something today.